The council chamber floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, carved from a single asteroid and covered in shields that could stop any weapon known to galactic civilization. Inside, 47 species sat in their designated positions. Some breathed oxygen. Others needed methane or hydrogen. A few existed as pure energy. But they all shared one thing. They all believed they ruled this part of the galaxy. Supreme Admiral Thexilor stood at the center of the chamber. His species, the Vraxians, had conquered 12 systems before joining the Council 50,000 years ago. He was tall, with scales that shimmered like oil on water and forearms that ended in claws. His eyes were black and cold. He had commanded fleets for 300 years. He had destroyed rebellions. He had pacified primitive worlds. He had never lost a battle. Today, he would add another victory to his record. High Chancellor Mordeth, a being that looked like floating crystals arranged in the shape of a person, spoke first. The voice came from everywhere at once. It was old and tired and bored. "The humans have refused our 7th diplomatic request," Mordeth said. "They continue to expand into systems we have marked for council development. They refuse to pay the standard tribute. They refuse to submit their military for inspection. They refuse to acknowledge council authority." A ripple of anger moved through the chamber. The humans were new. They had discovered faster-than-light travel only 30 years ago. 30 years. Some of the species in this room had been traveling between stars for 100,000 years. The audacity of these newcomers was beyond understanding. Thexilor stepped forward. His claws clicked on the stone floor. "My fleet is ready," he announced. 5,000 warships, the finest vessels from each member species. We have gathered at the edge of their home system. We will broadcast our final ultimatum. They will comply, or we will demonstrate why 207 species before them have chosen to submit peacefully. Mordeth's crystals pulsed with approval. The other council members made their various sounds of agreement. Clicks and chirps and subsonic rumbles that made the asteroid shake. "Make it so," the Chancellor said. "Broadcast on all human frequencies. Let them understand the price of defiance." The transmission went out from the Council flagship. It was sent in every language humanity spoke. English and Mandarin and Spanish and Hindi and Arabic and hundreds more. The message was simple. Humanity would surrender immediately. They would dismantle 90% of their military forces. They would open their worlds to council inspectors. They would pay tribute equal to half their economic output for the next century. They would accept occupation by council peacekeepers, or they would face pacification. The word was chosen carefully. It sounded gentle. It was not. Pacification meant the destruction of all orbital infrastructure. It meant targeted strikes on military installations. It meant blockades that would starve worlds into submission. It meant the end of human independence forever. The Council had done this 207 times before. Every species followed the same pattern. First came shock. Then came fear. Then came desperate negotiations. Finally came acceptance. Some species took days to surrender. Some took hours. None took more than a week. Thexilor watched the human homeworld on his tactical display. Earth, a small blue planet orbiting an unremarkable yellow star. The humans called it Sol. The Council databases showed it was just another water world. Nothing special. Nothing worth dying for. He expected their response within the hour. Probably less. The presence of his fleet would make the message clear. The humans had perhaps 300 military vessels. Thexilor had 5,000. The mathematics were simple. The response came in 47 minutes, a single transmission. Audio only. The voice was female, calm, speaking in perfect council standard. It came from Earth Defense Force Command. From Admiral Sarah Chen. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We have received your ultimatum. Our response is no." Silence filled the council chamber. The word translated correctly in every language. No, simple, direct, impossible. Admiral Chen continued. Her voice never changed, never showed fear or anger or doubt. "Earth does not recognize council authority. We did not agree to your treaties. We did not ask for your protection. We do not need your governance. You have entered our star system without permission. You have threatened our home. You have 1 hour to leave. If you do not, we will consider your presence an act of war. We will respond accordingly." The transmission ended. For 3 seconds, nobody in the council chamber spoke. Then Thexilor started laughing. It was a harsh sound like metal scraping on stone. Other council members joined in. The humans were giving them an ultimatum. The humans were threatening the council. It was the most ridiculous thing Thexler had heard in 3 centuries of military service. They must not understand the situation, Mordeth said. Send them our military records. Show them what happened to the last species that refused. Make them understand. Thexler's tactical officer, a small insectoid creature with compound eyes, touched several controls. Data streams flowed toward Earth. Records of the Council's last pacification campaign. The Zelti had been a warrior species, strong, aggressive. They had lasted 6 days before surrendering. Their military had been crushed. Their pride had been broken. The humans acknowledged receipt of the data. They did not respond. They did not negotiate. They did not beg for more time. They just waited. Thexler checked his chronometer. 53 minutes left on the human deadline. He turned to face the council. With your permission, I will begin military operations the moment their deadline expires, he said. We will make an example of Earth that will echo through the galaxy for the next 10,000 years. Every council member voted yes. It was unanimous. It always was. Thexler returned to his flagship. The bridge was quiet and efficient. His crew had fought together for decades. They knew their roles. They trusted their admiral. They had never lost. All ships report ready, his tactical officer announced. Excellent, Thexler said. He settled into his command throne. The weapons systems came online. 5,000 ships, each capable of destroying a city with a single shot, waited for his order. On Earth, President James Morrison stood in the command center deep below the Rocky Mountains. He was an old man now, but he had been young once. Young enough to serve in the last war humans fought among themselves. He remembered what humanity was capable of when threatened. He hoped the council would leave. He really did. But he knew they would not. They had been doing this for 50,000 years. They thought they understood war. They thought they understood violence. They thought they understood power. They were wrong. Admiral Chen, Morrison said quietly. What is the status of Protocol Rubicon? Sarah Chen stood at her console. Around her, 300 officers monitored systems the council did not know existed. Could not know existed. Would never have believed possible even if they had been told. All systems are active and ready, Mr. President, she replied. The council fleet is exactly where we need them to be. Morrison nodded slowly. He thought about the council's arrogance, their certainty, their absolute belief that they were superior to humanity. He thought about all the species that had surrendered, all the civilizations that had given up their freedom rather than fight. Humanity was not like those species. Humanity had spent 10,000 years fighting itself. Nation against nation, empire against empire, ideology against ideology. They had perfected the art of killing. They had studied war the way other species studied poetry. They had built weapons that terrified them so much they almost destroyed themselves. Almost. And then they had gone to space. But they had not forgotten. They had just prepared. The chronometer showed 5 minutes until the deadline expired. Morrison looked at the display showing the council fleet. 5,000 ships, proud, powerful, confident, doomed. They should have left, Morrison whispered. The deadline expired at exactly 1400 hours Earth Standard Time. For 60 seconds, nothing happened. The council fleet hung in space at the edge of the solar system, weapons charged, shields at maximum. 5,000 warships in perfect formation, beautiful in a terrible way, like a storm about to break. On the council flagship, Thex Eiler watched his displays with satisfaction. The humans had not moved. Their few hundred ships remained scattered throughout the inner system, guarding their planets, protecting their stations. Spread too thin to matter? Perhaps they are hoping we will simply leave, his tactical officer suggested. Thexler shook his head. All 4 hands moved across his command displays. He called up scans of human military capabilities. The data was 3 months old, but species this primitive did not advance quickly. He had nothing to fear. Human vessels were small. Their shields were weak. Their weapons were chemical-based projectiles and primitive lasers. Nothing that could threaten council ships. Nothing that could stop what was coming. Their silence is their answer, Thexler said. Advance the fleet. All ships prepare for... A new transmission interrupted him. It came from Earth again. Admiral Chen's voice, still calm, still controlled. Council fleet, this is your final warning. You have crossed the orbital boundary of Neptune. You are now within the territorial boundaries of the Sol Defense Zone. Leave immediately or face destruction. You have been warned. What happens next is your choice. Laughter echoed through the flagship's bridge. Neptune was 4 billion kilometers from Earth. The humans were claiming the entire outer solar system as their territory? Ridiculous. Even the Council only claimed the space within a few light minutes of member worlds. Thexler opened a channel back to Earth. He wanted the humans to hear this. Wanted them to understand what their arrogance had bought them. Admiral Chen. I am Supreme Admiral Thexler of the Vraxian Empire, commander of the Council Enforcement Fleet. I have fought for 300 years. I have destroyed entire fleets. I have pacified dozens of worlds. You have 300 ships. I have 5,000. Your weapons are toys. Your shields are paper. Your threats are meaningless. He paused, letting the words sink in. You will watch what happens when a primitive species challenges the Council. You will watch your world burn, and then you will surrender. They all do. Silence from Earth. Thexler cut the transmission. He turned to his fleet coordinator. Begin the attack. Target their orbital stations first. I want them to see what they have lost. The fleet moved forward. 5,000 ships accelerating as one. Their formation was perfect. Their coordination was flawless. This was what 50,000 years of military tradition looked like. Deep in Earth's command center, Admiral Chen watched the Council fleet approach. Around her, displays showed information the Council could not see. Would not believe even if they could see it. 300 Earth Defense Force ships were visible. That much was true, but those 300 ships were the least important part of humanity's military. They were symbols, flags to show the Council what they expected to see. The real defenses were invisible. For 30 years, while the Council watched humanity explore and expand, humans had been building. Not just ships, not just stations. They had built something the galaxy had never seen. They had turned their entire solar system into a fortress. The moon was not just a moon anymore. Under the surface, in caverns carved by machines that could eat through rock like water, humanity had built weapons. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. Missile batteries with enough firepower to level continents. Power generators that fed on the moon's core itself. Mars was the same. In the asteroid belt, thousands of rocks floating in space, each one hollowed out and filled with weapons. Each one waiting. Silent. Patient. Jupiter's moons were factories. Not just for ships, but for ammunition. Millions of tons of projectiles. Hundreds of thousands of missiles. All manufactured in secret, deep beneath ice and rock where Council sensors could not detect them. And in the outer system, beyond Neptune, in the cold darkness where nothing should exist, humanity had placed their most terrible weapons, the ones they hoped they would never have to use, the ones that made even human military planners nervous. Chen pulled up a tactical display. It showed the Council fleet as red markers advancing into the inner system. It showed Earth's visible ships as blue markers, and then she activated the hidden layer. The display exploded with green markers, thousands of them, tens of thousands, each one a weapon platform. Each one capable of engaging multiple targets. Each one connected to a network that spanned the entire solar system. The Council fleet was not entering a star system. They were entering a trap. They still have time to turn around, President Morrison said quietly. He stood beside Chen, watching the same display. Send them the data. Show them what they're flying into. Give them one last chance. Chen hesitated. It went against every tactical instinct to reveal their defensive capabilities. But Morrison was right. Once this started, it could not be stopped. The galaxy would change forever. Transmitting now, she said. The data stream flowed toward the Council flagship. Not just words this time, detailed scans, targeting solutions, energy signatures, the complete tactical picture of what waited for them in the Sol system. On the flagship, Thexler's tactical officer stared at the incoming data with all 6 of his compound eyes. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of confusion in his species. Admiral, he said slowly, the humans have sent us their defensive grid data. A bluff, Thexler said immediately. Ignore it. But sir, the number of weapon platforms they claim to have, it is impossible. No species this young could. Exactly, Thexler said. It is impossible. They are trying to make us hesitate. They are trying to buy time for their fleet to regroup. Continue the advance. The tactical officer wanted to argue. He had seen the data. The energy signatures were real. The distribution patterns made sense. The targeting solutions were sophisticated. But he had served under Thexler for 40 years. He had learned to trust his admiral. He did not argue. The Council fleet crossed the orbit of Uranus, still advancing, still confident. Behind them, on the Council station, the 47 member species watched through live feeds. This would be recorded. This would be broadcast across the galaxy. Another lesson in the price of defiance. They crossed Saturn's orbit. Jupiter's massive gravity well registered on their sensors, but nothing else. No weapons. No platforms. Nothing but the gas giant and its moons. Thexler allowed himself a small smile. The humans had lied. Of course they had lied. Primitive species always lied when they were desperate. They crossed the asteroid belt. Thousands of rocks drifted past. Some were large enough to be visible on long-range sensors. None showed any signs of weapons. None showed any signs of power generation. They were just rocks. Mars came into view. A red planet, cold and dead. Human colonies clustered around the poles where there was ice. Nothing threatening. Nothing worth noticing. The fleet reached Mars' orbit. They were close now. Close enough to see Earth with visual sensors. That blue marble that the humans loved so much. That insignificant world that thought it could challenge the Council. Weapons range in 30 seconds, the tactical officer reported. Thexler nodded. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Thexler. We have been generous. We have been patient. The humans have made their choice. On my mark, all batteries will open fire on designated orbital targets. Show them what happens when primitives dare to. Every alarm on the flagship started screaming at once. The tactical displays exploded with contacts. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Energy signatures that made no sense. Power readings that should not exist. Weapon locks from every direction. The asteroids lit up. The moons of Mars and Jupiter blazed with power. The moon itself, that dead satellite orbiting Earth, suddenly showed energy readings that matched a star going nova. Thexler stared at the displays. His four hands moved rapidly, trying to make sense of the data. It was not possible. It could not be possible. But the sensors did not lie. The humans had not been bluffing. The humans had not been lying. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. And the Council fleet was sitting right in the middle of. Admiral Chen's voice came over the open channel. Still calm, still controlled, but with an edge of cold steel that had not been there before. Council fleet, you were warned. You were given every chance to leave. What happens next is on you. Fire. The solar system lit up like a second sun had been born. The first wave hit the Council fleet before they could even raise full shields. Railgun projectiles launched from the moon traveled at 40% of light speed. At that velocity, they did not need warheads. They did not need explosives. Pure kinetic energy was enough. Each projectile massed less than a kilogram. But when it hit a Council ship, the impact released energy equivalent to a nuclear weapon. Shields designed to stop energy weapons and missiles were useless. The projectiles went through them like they were not even there. They punched through armor that had withstood plasma cannons and particle beams. They turned proud warships into expanding clouds of debris. 17 Council ships died in the first 3 seconds. Thexler stared at his displays in shock. His mind could not process what he was seeing. Ships that had fought for centuries were simply gone, erased, not disabled, not damaged, destroyed so completely that there was nothing left but superheated gas. Evasive maneuvers, he roared. All ships scatter. Emergency jump protocols. But humanity had studied the Council for 30 years. They knew how Council ships moved. They knew their tactical doctrine. They knew their standard responses to every situation. And they had planned accordingly. As the Council ships tried to scatter, the asteroids opened fire. Thousands of rocks that had looked dead and harmless suddenly blazed with energy. Missile batteries launched their payloads. Not chemical rockets like the Council expected. These missiles used quantum entanglement for guidance. They could not be jammed. They could not be fooled. They locked onto their targets and never let go. And they were fast. Faster than anything the Council had ever seen. They accelerated at rates that should have crushed their internal components. They maneuvered at angles that violated the Council's understanding of physics. They swarmed council ships like insects, overwhelming point defenses through sheer numbers. Each missile that hit delivered a payload specifically designed for its target. The humans had studied every species in the council. They knew the Vraxians used biological components in their ships. They knew the crystalline entities relied on harmonic resonance for communication. They knew the energy beings existed in a narrow electromagnetic spectrum, and they had built weapons to exploit every weakness. Viral nanites spread through Vraxian ships, consuming their biological systems. Frequency weapons shattered crystalline vessels from the inside out. Electromagnetic pulse bombs disrupted energy being containment fields, causing them to dissipate into space. Mars lit up next. Weapons that had been hidden under kilometers of rock and ice fired their first shots in 30 years. Particle beams that could cut through planets. Plasma cannons that turned space itself into a furnace. Mass drivers that launched projectiles the size of houses. The Council fleet's formation fell apart. Ships collided with each other trying to evade. Others jumped to faster-than-light speed without proper calculations and emerged inside asteroids or into the gravity wells of planets. Some tried to fight back, but their targeting systems could not keep up with the sheer volume of threats. Jupiter's moons added their firepower to the battle. Automated defense platforms that had been built over 3 decades joined the fight. Each one was a masterpiece of human engineering. Each one had been designed with a single purpose: to kill anything that threatened Earth. The battle was not a battle. It was an execution. On his flagship, Thexalor watched his fleet die. His proud armada that had pacified 200 worlds was being torn apart. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles were being destroyed faster than his sensors could track. His tactical officer was shouting numbers, kill counts, casualty reports. Every number was worse than the last. 800 ships destroyed. No, 900. Admiral, we have to retreat. Thexalor's mind raced. This was impossible. How could humans do this? They were primitives. They had been in space for only 30 years. Where had they gotten this technology? How had they hidden it? The answer did not matter. Only survival mattered now. All ships, retreat, he commanded. Emergency jump! Get us out of here! The remaining council ships tried to obey. Their faster-than-light drives began charging. But humanity had anticipated this too. They had studied council jump technology. They had learned its limitations. They had found its weaknesses. From positions throughout the solar system, humanity activated their most controversial weapon: artificial singularities, miniature black holes, each one smaller than an atom, held in magnetic containment fields. When the fields collapsed, the singularities were released. Space-time itself warped and twisted around the Council fleet. Jump drives that were trying to punch holes in reality found those holes already occupied. Ships that tried to enter faster than light speed were torn apart by gravitational forces. The lucky ones died instantly. The unlucky ones were stretched and compressed until there was nothing left but elementary particles. On Earth, Admiral Chen watched her displays with no satisfaction. This was not a victory to celebrate. This was a necessity. A demonstration that had to be made. A message that had to be sent. President Morrison stood beside her, his face gray with the weight of what they had done. How many? He asked quietly. 3,000 council ships destroyed, Chen replied. 2,000 more disabled or fleeing. Casualties estimated at over 4 million. Morrison closed his eyes. 4 million lives. 4 million beings who had served their governments, who had families, who had believed they were doing the right thing, but they had threatened Earth. They had come with the intention of conquest. They had given humanity no choice. Make sure the galaxy sees this, Morrison said. All of it. Every second. I want every species out there to understand what happened here. I want them to know we gave them chances to leave. I want them to know we defended ourselves. And I want them to know that this will happen to anyone else who threatens us. Chen nodded. The battle feeds were already being broadcast on every frequency humans knew. The same channels the Council had used to mock Earth's defiance were now showing the destruction of the Council fleet. In the Council chamber, panic had replaced arrogance. The 47-member species watched their proud fleet being annihilated. High Chancellor Mordith's crystals pulsed with colors that indicated terror. How is this possible? Someone screamed. Where did they get this technology? They built it themselves, another voice said. This came from the Council's chief scientist, a being made of pure thought that existed inside a containment field. Look at the designs. Look at the engineering principles. It is all derived from their own science. They did not steal this. They created it. Silence filled the chamber. The implications were staggering. Humanity had gone from primitive to advanced in 30 years. They had done what took most species thousands of years to accomplish. And they had done it in secret, while the council watched and thought they understood what they were seeing. Contact the fleet, Mordeth said desperately. Tell them to surrender. Tell them to... There is no fleet, the scientist said quietly. Not anymore. On his damaged flagship, Thexeler watched the counter continue to climb. 4,000 ships destroyed. 4,500, 5,000. His entire fleet. Gone in less than 15 minutes, his tactical officer was dead. Most of the bridge crew was dead. Fires burned in corridors that had no air. Emergency bulkheads sealed off sections that would never be repaired. Thexeler activated the emergency distress beacon. It was a surrender signal, something he had never thought he would use, something he had seen dozens of enemy commanders use over his 3 centuries of service. Admiral Chen's voice came through his communicator. Admiral Thexeler, this is Admiral Chen. I am receiving your surrender signal. Power down all weapons and shields. Do not attempt to jump to faster than light speed. Do not attempt to escape. If you comply, your remaining ships will be allowed to limp home. If you do not comply, you will all die. You have 60 seconds to decide. Thexeler looked at the ruins of his fleet. Less than 200 ships remained operational. All of them damaged. All of them helpless. He thought about his 300 years of service. His pride, his honor, his unbroken string of victories. It meant nothing now. Power down all systems, he ordered. His voice sounded dead even to himself. Comply with human demands. One by one, the surviving council ships went dark. Their weapons deactivated. Their shields dropped. They sat in space like broken toys, surrounded by the debris of what had once been the greatest military force in the galaxy. The battle was over. It had lasted 17 minutes from first shot to last surrender. 17 minutes to destroy 50,000 years of council military tradition. 17 minutes to change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. Admiral Chen looked at her chronometer. 17 minutes and 34 seconds to be precise. She opened a channel to the council chamber. To the 47 species that had thought they ruled this part of space. To the arrogant fools who had threatened humanity's home. Galaxy Council, she said. Her voice was cold enough to freeze stars. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of Earth Defense Force. Your fleet is destroyed. Your military power is broken. Your reign is over. We are transmitting these battle records to every species within 100 light years. Let them see what happens when you threaten humanity. The news traveled faster than light. Within hours, every civilization within 100 light years knew what had happened. The broadcasts showed everything. The council fleet arriving with confidence. The human warnings being ignored. The moment the weapons activated. The systematic destruction that followed. And finally, the surrender of the few ships that survived. The galaxy reacted with shock, then disbelief, then fear. The council had ruled for 50,000 years. They had pacified 207 species. They had the most powerful military in known space. And a species that had been in space for only 30 years had destroyed them in less than 20 minutes. On the Zelthi homeworld, the warrior clans gathered to watch the recordings. They had fought the council 6 years ago. They had lasted 6 days before being forced to surrender. They had thought themselves strong. They had thought themselves fierce. Now they watched humans do what they could not. The clan chieftain, a massive creature covered in scars from a lifetime of battles, watched the footage 3 times. Then he spoke one word. Terrifying, his warriors agreed. They had seen many forms of warfare, many types of violence. But what the humans had done was something different. It was not just brutality. It was calculated, precise, every weapon perfectly designed for its target, every shot fired with purpose. No wasted effort, no unnecessary cruelty, just absolute, overwhelming efficiency. Send a message to Earth, the chieftain ordered. Tell them the Zelthi remember what it means to fight for freedom. Tell them we offer our friendship. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. Species that had been conquered by the Council saw hope for the first time in generations. Species that had submitted without fighting felt shame. And species that had been planning their own rebellions suddenly found courage. But not everyone felt hope. Some felt terror. The krill were one of the oldest council member species. They had joined 10,000 years ago, back when the council was young and still growing. They had benefited greatly from council membership. Their economy thrived on tribute from conquered worlds. Their military had participated in dozens of pacification campaigns. Now the krill leadership watched the Earth broadcasts and saw their entire civilization crumbling. Without the council, they had no protection. Without the tribute system, they had no wealth. And without the fleet, they had no power. We must negotiate with the humans, one advisor suggested. Offer them anything they want: technology, resources, territory. The humans do not want territory, another replied. Look at their expansion pattern. They only colonize systems with no intelligent life. They avoid conflict when possible. They only fight when threatened. Then we must not threaten them, the first advisor said. Ever. The krill sent their message to Earth within 6 hours of the battle. An unconditional offer of peace. Recognition of human territorial claims. A promise never to interfere with human affairs. Other species followed. Some offered peace. Some offered trade agreements. Some offered technology exchanges. All of them offered respect. In the ruins of the council chamber, the 47-member species tried to understand what had happened to them. Their military was gone. Their authority was shattered. Their empire was collapsing in real time. High Chancellor Mordeth's crystals had lost their usual glow. The ancient being looked almost gray now, tired, defeated. We must respond, someone said. We cannot let this stand. We must rebuild the fleet. We must— With what? Mordeth interrupted. 5,000 ships destroyed. Our best commanders dead. Our military reputation in ruins. Who will join a new fleet? Who will follow us into another battle with humanity? Silence answered the question. We need to negotiate, another member said. Offer them terms. Find out what they want. They have already told us what they want, the council's chief scientist said. They want to be left alone. That was their only demand. Leave our system. Stop threatening us. That was all they asked. Then we give them what they want, Mordeth said heavily. We leave them alone. We pray they do the same for us. On Earth, President Morrison sat in his office and read through the flood of messages coming from across the galaxy. Offers of peace. Requests for alliance. Some were sincere. Some were clearly attempts to gain favor with the new power in the region. A few were thinly veiled threats from species that thought they could challenge humanity, now that Earth had shown its strength. Those last messages worried him the most. Admiral Chen entered the office. She looked tired. The weight of 4 million deaths showed on her face. How are you holding up? Morrison asked. Chen sat down without being invited. She stared at her hands for a moment. I killed 4 million beings today, she said quietly. I gave the order. I pressed the button. Those deaths are on me. Those deaths are on the council, Morrison replied. We gave them every chance to leave. Every opportunity to turn back. They chose this path, I know. That does not make it easier. Morrison understood. He had given orders in war before. He knew what it meant to live with the consequences. The galaxy is responding, he said, changing the subject. Dozens of species reaching out. Some want peace. Some want alliance. And some— He trailed off. Chen looked up. Some want to test us, she finished. They see what we did and think they can do better. They think they can succeed where the council failed. Exactly, Morrison said. We have created a problem. By showing our strength, we have challenged every warrior species in the galaxy. Some of them will have to try us. It is in their nature, Chen thought about that. She thought about the weapons still hidden throughout the Sol system. The defenses that could be activated again in seconds. The capabilities humanity had demonstrated were impressive, but they were not humanity's full strength. They were just the beginning. Let them come, she said. Let them test us. Let them see what happens when they threaten Earth. Maybe after the second demonstration, the galaxy will finally understand. Morrison nodded slowly. He hoped it would not come to that. He hoped the destruction of the council fleet would be enough. But he was a realist. He knew that hope was not a strategy. Begin diplomatic outreach, he ordered. Accept peace offers from species that seem sincere. Establish trade relationships. Build alliances. Show the galaxy we are not monsters. Show them we only fight when we have no choice. And the species that want to test us? Chen asked. We make sure they understand the price, Morrison said. His voice was hard. We give them one warning, just one. If they ignore it, we show them the same mercy the Council would have shown us. None. 3 days after the battle, Earth received its first diplomatic visitors. Representatives from 12 species arrived in the Sol system. They came in unarmed vessels, broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency. They requested permission to enter orbit. They followed every protocol humanity established. They were terrified. The Zelti representative was first to speak. He was a smaller version of his chieftain, but still massive by human standards. His translator converted his deep growls into standard English. "Humans of Earth," he began. "The Zelti people offer friendship. We remember what it means to fight for freedom. We respect strength used in defense of home. We request alliance against those who would restore the Council." President Morrison listened to each delegation. Some offered trade, some offered technology, some simply asked for protection against Council remnants or other threats. He was careful with his responses. Humanity did not want to become the new Council, did not want to rule others, but they needed allies, needed friends in a galaxy that was still learning to fear them. "We accept your offers of peace," Morrison told them. "Earth has no desire to conquer, no desire to rule. We only want to exist in peace and to be left alone, but we will defend ourselves and our allies with every resource we possess. We will never submit to external authority, and we will never allow another species to threaten our home." He paused, making sure every translator caught his next words. The Council thought we were weak because we were young. They thought we were primitive because we had only been in space for 30 years. They were wrong. Let their fate be a lesson. Humanity does not want war. But if war comes to us, we will end it, quickly, permanently, and without mercy. The delegates listened in silence. Some were frightened. Some were hopeful. All of them understood. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. A new power had emerged, and that power had made its intentions clear. Leave humanity alone, and humanity would leave you alone. Threaten humanity, and face the same fate as the Council. It was a simple message. Most of the galaxy understood it immediately. But there were some who did not understand. Some who thought they could do better than the Council. Some who saw humanity's demonstration of power as a challenge rather than a warning. Those species would learn. Eventually. But for now, in the days immediately following the battle, there was peace. The Council was broken. The member species were scrambling to adapt to the new reality. And humanity stood watch over its solar system, weapons ready, waiting to see what the galaxy would do next. Admiral Chen looked at the defensive grid display. Every weapon platform was still active. Every missile battery was still loaded. Every railgun was still charged. The system that had destroyed the Council fleet in 17 minutes remained ready to do it again. 6 months passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. The Council chamber was empty now. The 47 member species had returned to their homeworlds. Some tried to maintain local power. Others focused on rebuilding their own militaries. A few simply disappeared from galactic politics entirely, too ashamed to show their faces after such a catastrophic defeat. The tribute system collapsed. Worlds that had paid the Council for protection stopped sending resources. Worlds that had been conquered began declaring independence. The old empire fragmented into hundreds of smaller territories, each one trying to find its place in the new order. Some species thrived in the chaos. The Zelti expanded their territory, reclaiming systems they had lost to the Council decades ago. Other warrior species did the same. There were small wars, brief conflicts as old grudges resurfaced and new borders were drawn. But none of those conflicts touched human space. Everyone remembered what happened to the Council fleet. Everyone understood that humanity had drawn a line around its territory and would defend that line with absolute force. Humanity continued its expansion, but carefully. They colonized uninhabited systems. They established trade relationships with peaceful species. They offered defensive alliances to worlds that requested protection. And they made it clear that any aggression toward Earth or its allies would be met with the same response the Council received. Most species took the hint. Most species valued their continued existence, but not all. The Korthax Dominion was a younger empire, only 5,000 years old. They had not been part of the original Council. They had watched from a distance as the Council ruled their region of space. They had studied the battle recordings like everyone else. and they had reached a different conclusion. The Korthax believed the Council had been weak, complacent, lazy after 50,000 years of unopposed rule. They believed their own military, hardened by constant warfare with neighboring empires, would fare better. They believed humanity had gotten lucky. They believed they could succeed where the Council failed. They were wrong. The Korthax fleet arrived at the edge of human space 6 months and 3 days after the destruction of the Council. They brought 3,000 ships, not as many as the Council, but these were modern vessels built for war. The Korthax had confidence in their abilities. They broadcast their demands. Humanity would submit to Korthax authority. Humanity would share its defensive technology. Humanity would pay tribute, the usual demands of conquerors throughout history. Earth's response was immediate and identical to the one given to the Council. Nord Admiral Chen gave them the same warning, the same 60-minute deadline, the same promise of destruction if they did not leave. She sent them the complete battle recordings from the Council engagement. She showed them exactly what would happen if they stayed. The Korthax admiral laughed. He believed his people were stronger, smarter, better prepared. He had studied human tactics. He had developed countermeasures. He had strategies the Council never considered. The deadline expired. The Korthax fleet lasted 11 minutes. Humanity had studied the Korthax during the 6 months of peace. They knew Korthax ship designs. They knew Korthax defensive doctrines. They knew Korthax biology. And they had built new weapons specifically designed to kill them. The Korthax had expected the railguns and missiles they had seen in the Council battle. They had not expected the quantum disruptors that tore their shields apart at the molecular level. They had not expected the bioweapons that exploited weaknesses in Korthax physiology. They had not expected humanity to have developed entirely new weapon systems in just 6 months. But that was what humanity did. They adapted. They improved. They learned from every engagement. The weapons that destroyed the Council had been designed over 30 years. The weapons that destroyed the Korthax had been designed in 6 months, and they were better. This time, Earth did not accept surrenders. President Morrison had made that decision after long deliberation. The Council had been given every chance to leave peacefully. They had chosen war. Humanity had shown mercy to the survivors because the lesson needed to be taught. The Korthax had watched that lesson. They had seen what happened to the Council. They had been warned explicitly. They had chosen to attack anyway. They did not deserve mercy. They deserved to serve as an example. 3,000 Korthax ships entered the Sol system. 0 survived. The battle recordings were broadcast across the same channels as before. The galaxy watched. The galaxy learned. This time the lesson was clear. There would be no second warnings. There would be no mercy for those who ignored the first demonstration. Attack humanity and die, all of you. Every single ship. Every single soldier. No survivors. No prisoners. No chance to surrender. Just death. The message resonated. The galaxy had been unsure after the Council battle. Some species thought humanity might have been bluffing. Some thought the Council had just made tactical mistakes. Some thought they could do better. The destruction of the Korthax fleet removed all doubt. Humanity was not bluffing. Humanity did not make empty threats, and humanity would absolutely follow through on its promises. President Morrison addressed the galaxy after the second battle. His message was broadcast on every channel, translated into every known language. People of the galaxy, I am President James Morrison of the United Earth Government. You have now witnessed 2 demonstrations of human defensive capabilities. The Council was warned. They ignored the warning. We showed them mercy. The Korthax were warned. They ignored the warning. We showed them none. Let me be absolutely clear about humanity's position. He paused, letting the translators catch up. We did not ask to be part of galactic civilization. We did not ask for your attention. We did not ask for your governance. We want to be left alone. We want to colonize empty worlds and build our civilization in peace. We want to trade with those who trade fairly. We want to ally with those who share our values. We want to coexist with all species who respect our sovereignty. Another pause. His face hardened. But if you threaten us, we will destroy you. If you attack our worlds, we will destroy you. If you harm our people, we will destroy you. There will be no negotiation, no surrender, no mercy. We have shown you what we are capable of. We have given you every warning. What happens next is your choice. Choose peace and we will be the best ally you could hope for. Choose war, and we will be the last enemy you ever face. The transmission ended. The galaxy chose peace. Oh, there were still conflicts, still wars between other species, still territorial disputes and trade disagreements and cultural clashes, but none of them involved humanity unless humanity chose to be involved. And when humanity did get involved, it was always to defend the weak or to enforce fair dealing. Human reputation spread. They became known as fierce defenders but fair traders. Terrible enemies but loyal allies. They would help species that asked for help. They would defend worlds that could not defend themselves. But they would absolutely destroy anyone who mistook kindness for weakness. 10 years passed. Then 20. Then 50. Human territory expanded slowly and carefully. They never took what belonged to others. They never conquered. They just grew like a tree finding empty space to spread its branches. Admiral Chen retired after 30 years of service. She had overseen the defense of Earth through the most dangerous period in human history. She had made the hard decisions, carried the weight of millions of deaths, but she had also ensured humanity's survival and independence. On her last day in uniform, she visited the memorial that had been built on the moon. It stood next to one of the railgun batteries that had fired in the first battle. A simple monument with 2 names carved in stone. The Council Fleet, the Korthax Dominion, and beneath those names a single line of text. They should have left. Chen stood there for a long time looking at those words. She thought about all the species that had threatened Earth, all the ones that had learned the hard way, all the ones that had died because they mistook human patience for weakness. She thought about the galaxy as it existed now, peaceful at least for humanity, respectful, careful. Nobody dared to threaten Earth anymore. Nobody dared to test human defenses. The demonstrations had been enough. A young officer approached her. He was barely 20, too young to remember the battles, too young to understand what it had taken to secure the peace he enjoyed. "Admiral Chen," he said quietly, "I have studied your tactics, your decisions, the battles you fought. I wanted to ask, do you have any regrets?" Chen looked at him. She thought about the 4 million Council soldiers who died in 17 minutes, the 3 million Korthax who died in 11. All the lives ended because their leaders chose poorly. "Yes," she said finally, "I regret that it was necessary. I regret that we had to kill so many to teach the galaxy to leave us alone. I regret every death." She turned back to the memorial. "But I do not regret defending Earth. I do not regret protecting humanity. And I do not regret making the galaxy understand that some species will not be conquered. Some species will not submit. Some species will fight to the last breath to protect their home." The young officer nodded slowly. He looked at the memorial, at the names of the fallen enemies, at the simple message carved in stone.